Hi, folks, and welcome to a brand new episode of The Franchise Entrepreneur, and welcome to a brand new year, 2020. So I thought, in line with the new year, I would do some predictions for the year ahead, 2020, in food and beverage and the high street. So I actually done a post on this on LinkedIn just a couple of days ago and got a lot of response from it. It was probably about 20,000 likes and shares and comments and all sorts on it. Some of this you might think a little controversial, maybe a little poke in the eye for a few people. I'm not trying to be pessimistic with anyone. This is my opinion, and I'm just putting some views out there. So here we go, 2020. Right, okay, so I'm going to look at a few brands. So I'm going to start with Five Guys. I'm sure Five Guys, most people are familiar with. The burger chain has been doing incredibly well. Obviously, very well in Europe, very well in America. But what's happened recently in the UK, and I'm only talking about the UK here because it's the only thing that I can actually know about and comment on. So what I have noticed is that they are doing exactly what a lot of other brands have done that have started in London. And obviously it's understandable. Most brands start off in London and they work their way out. The problem is if you don't understand the market in the UK, is that you make the same assumptions that what works in London will work outside of London. And there's a big problem with that. The biggest problem is that you cannot take that overhead with you, the same large overhead that you have in London, and you don't have the footfall outside of London. It's completely different. Five Guys are picking very big sites, very big locations, and they're paying big rents, and they're not getting the footfall. They're making the same mistakes that so many others have made before them, and I really would have thought they would have learned their lessons, because I thought they were a bit smarter than that. But whoever's picking their sites in the UK needs to be up the backside, because he's picking bad sites. Not all of them, but I've seen quite a few of them, and I'm predicting quite a few closures over the next 12 months for Five Guys, because they're making really bad mistakes. There's no way they're making money out of some of those sites. Not a chance. And disappointing, because once again, it's another big chain who just doesn't learn its lessons. You cannot apply the same logic outside of London as you do inside London. It's simple as that. And either these companies just are employing the wrong people, taking the wrong advice. But ultimately, it's the guy at the top's choice, isn't it? It's the guy at the top who's making the decision, and they're making bad decisions. And it's the same old story I've seen many, many times, and I just don't get it. You could only put it down to really taking your eye off the ball and a bit of poor management. But look, that's what I'm predicting. Five Guys closing a load of stores in 2020. Subway continuing the same as they have been for the last 2 years, where they will be consolidating, trying to modernise, failing miserably, closing stores, very pissed off franchisees, and a very stale brand. Goes with a stale bread. So yeah, pretty much the same for Subway. That's not really rocket science with Subway. Probably people will be raising their eyebrows about Five Guys, but Subway I don't think will come as a major surprise for anyone. And the big disadvantage that Subway also have is obviously minimum wage is going up, and obviously that affects all of us. But with brands like Subway and quick service restaurants, it does impact them quite a lot as well, because they're working on pretty small margins anyway a lot of the time. When they're trying franchisees, you can understand why they're getting pissed off, because they're getting squeezed on their overheads, and you still got Subway throwing in really cheap offers. So it's a vicious circle for them. Right, so let's move on. Restaurant Group. Well, Restaurant Group's all about Wagamama's, because apart from their concessions, which are their airport concessions, etc., their other brands struggle. They really do, and I think they're struggling even more. And I predict that to carry on in 2020. Wagamama's is their cash cow. They paid a lot of money for it, and I think they paid it to mask a lot of the inefficiencies and inadequacies that they have within their management structure. the rest of their strategy. If you look at some of their other brands, what I find really frustrating with the restaurant group is they do really well on their concessions. But they do well on their concessions because they've got a captive audience, not because of the quality of what they do. They've got a captive audience, right? Let's be clear about that. Now, where they don't have a captive audience is on the high street, where they have to compete, and they fail miserably. Their brands are stale, they're old, there's nothing innovative about them. But they could change this. It's not rocket science. If they applied some logic and some common sense to some of their brands, even the ones that they really are struggling with, like Frankie and Benny's, why are they not looking at the franchise model? I don't get it. Frankie and Benny's is a well-known brand. They have to just raise the quality a little bit, and they'll be able to franchise this all over the world. It's crazy. I cannot, again, when you look at Five Guys top management, you look at Restaurant Group top management, you look at all the brands that have gone bust on restaurants, they will blame all of these outside influences, i.e. rates are too high, minimum wage, we're having to compete with delivery models, etc., etc. And all of those do play a part. There's no ifs or buts about it. I'm in the same game. I know that it impacts on us. But their biggest problem is that they're incompetent. Their senior management is not good enough. If they can't see the opportunities they have with some of their brands, then I don't know. I don't know what they're looking at. They've got a brand called Garfunkel's. It's got franchise written all over it. They don't do it. But look, Wagamama's will carry on being their cash cow. It's good business. It's great business. But you have to worry about it, because if you've got the same incompetent managers and owners who are responsible for the rest of the business running that, how long is it going to be before they start running that into the ground? They're talking about doing an express franchise model. I believe they're going to franchise it, or they're going to try and franchise it. Well, unless they bring in some really good people that know what they're doing, they're going to run into problems with it, in my opinion. So, yes, they should be exploring franchising on Wagamama's and on their other brands, but they need to change their management structure, because these guys have got a piss poor strategy and not very good at what they're doing. Pizza Express, well, Pizza Express has been in the paper, obviously, before Christmas, very heavily in debt. It's obviously going to try and refinance. It's obviously going to have to do some consolidation. It's obviously going to have to close some stores. I fear for it. And it's not because that company is got a bad product or it's not viable. It is. The underlying profit is there. The problem is they've saddled it with so much debt, it's become unmanageable. So, yeah, I fear for them, but I hope that they're able to restructure their finance and after a bit of consolidation that they will get it together. But I mean, certainly I can't see how they can grow that brand for the foreseeable future. Right, here's a good one. Jamie Oliver. Right, Jamie Oliver to launch a new brand. I think he will launch something that he's familiar with, which will be good staple English food, British food. Say English, can't say that anymore, can you? It's got to be British. So not particularly exciting, but I think and hope he's learned his lessons from his previous experience. And I really, really hope that he just does not go for a big rollout, for numbers, because clearly he can raise the money for it. But I just think it would be a disaster. I think what he should do is open up a couple in the first year and then just open up a couple every year. There's no need to be opening up 10 a year. He's not that type of businessman. He needs to probably take a leaf out of Gordon Ramsay's book and even Gino D'Acampo's and start just opening up a couple and get a really good reputation with those, and then copy that model and move forward. I'm actually amazed with D'Acampo's success, because when he first opened them, I thought they were pretty crappy, to be honest with you. So, but they got a grip of that, and they have a sensible rollout program. It's not amazing food, but it's pretty good. It's a damn sight better than what Jamie Oliver's was. And I think he should take the leaf out of that book. But I do honestly believe he will get back in the game and he will launch his own brand again. Okay, let's have a look. Major competitor for Deliveroo on their dark kitchens or their virtual kitchens. Now, I think what will happen here is the guy who was a major shareholder, or he may even been the founder of Uber, has sold all his shares. The rumour is, well, not a rumour, I think he's actually come out and said that he's going to do this. He's getting into the dark kitchen delivery model. I think he's going to, and he's been working on things in the UK. I think you're going to see a model appear in the UK this year to compete with the dark kitchens of Deliveroo. That will be either managed kitchens for brands, so they will manage the kitchens and they will effectively take the license off the brands and operate them themselves, or they will follow some sort of similar thing to Deliveroo. But I actually think they would make some changes because I don't think the Deliveroo model is particularly good. And now I say this with a caveat. In London, it does amazingly well. In the Middle East, it does amazingly well. Outside of London, in the UK, Deliveroo's dark kitchen, virtual kitchen sucks. Doesn't do well, right? And if they say it does, I'm sorry. I've had a look at them. You only have to ask how long their tenants stay there operating. Not very long. That's because they're not viable. So that model needs tweaking. I think Uber are going to come in and smash it. Sorry, not Uber, the guy from Uber. So, yeah, so I think big changes in that, I think, could be a real opportunity for a number of us if we can get in there in the early stages. Right, so now we get on to things like what the government controls. Can we expect any favours from the government over the next year? Right, business rates have obviously been massively contentious for years and years and years. I think there's sufficient pressure now on the government, and a government that is now not so preoccupied with everything Brexit and actually seems to want to make a difference. I think they will review the business rates, and I think you will see a more modern, revised business rates, which will help take the pressure off the high street. And I think that will come into effect probably sometime late in 2020. So, it's pretty late on, but I think it will help. And hopefully they start making the right noises sooner rather than later. So I think that will help everyone on the high street, particularly restaurants and big shopping retail units. VAT, here's a one for you. There's been a lobby for a number of years to reduce VAT on hospitality. I think there's actually a chance that it could happen again, maybe later in the year, because I don't think the government are necessarily going to look to reduce taxes for individuals, because I think they will be conscious that they will get some stick over that there isn't the money to be given individuals. But reduce VAT on hospitality, well, that kind of goes in the pocket of everyone, doesn't it? Because we all eat out at some point, or we all have a food delivery, or we visit a restaurant from time to time. So yeah, I'm sticking my neck out there and saying, actually, take a look at that. I think we might see a VAT reduction. Back to the restaurants, right? Itsu, love Itsu, love the owner, Mr. Metcalf, formerly from Pret. Done an amazing job for both Itsu and Pret. Itsu are phenomenally successful in London, opened up a few outside of London, I think Brighton, Oxford. But they have announced a major expansion, and I believe they are looking to do it via the franchise model. And I'm a big supporter of franchise models, as you know. That's why I'm called the franchise entrepreneur. However, I think unless they make some pretty significant changes to their model in terms of the size of unit and things like that, I think they're going to struggle. Initially, they're going to struggle. Now, I believe they will struggle because, again, the London mentality outside of London doesn't work. I think there's a reason why he's going down the franchise model, and that's because he knows it's going to be hard work outside of London. I think the problem that they're going to face is that they are a premium brand, and they are a premium brand. They've got a very good track record. They will be able to demand high franchise initial fees. And the problem with that is that they will use supporting information on the financials for the London stores and also the Brighton and Oxford ones. And I think people in Brighton and Oxford get it too. They're familiar with them. I think once you go further afield, you come to Manchester, you come to Liverpool, further afield, I think that's going to be more difficult. And I just don't think there's going to be a return on investment for those franchisees on those kind of premium expectations on the financials that Itsu may expect. I mean, obviously, we've not seen the model. I might be wrong. But I have a feeling that they're going to find that difficult, and I don't think they're going to expand anywhere near as quickly as that they believe they will, for those simple reasons. So, yeah, let's wait and see. I mean, it's nothing... Yeah, look, Metcalfe is brilliant. If anyone can get it right, he will get it right, but you won't get it right initially. And I think he knows how hard it's going to be, and that's why he's going down the franchise model rather than use his own capital to expand his brand outside of London. So, yeah, that's enough on Itsu. Let's wait and see. Generally, for the high street, I actually think I'm more of an optimist. I know there's a lot of doom and gloom out there, but I honestly believe that I am seeing signs that landlords are becoming more sensible. Not because they want to, because they have to, because the market outside of London is difficult. I think the game is up in terms of charging almost like London style rents, and even the big shopping centres. You look at Land Security, British Land, things like that. If you look at their financials that they were reporting at Companies House, they're struggling. They're having a really difficult time. You might see some of these big boys actually consolidating and merging with each other. Some buyouts from maybe overseas and places like that, because they're prime target. One, exchange rate is very attractive for investors, but also these firms are backs to the wall at the moment. They've lost some big retailers in their shopping centres. So, they're very keen to make sure that they don't lose any others. So, you're potentially getting slightly better deals than you would otherwise have got. That's not to say that they're not trying to keep the rents high. I just think they've been a little bit more flexible in allowing people to maybe be a bit later with their rents or coming up for renewals, and maybe their expectations a little bit less, demanding for premiums and things like that. But then there's also, the high street. The high street is a lot more sensible, I think. I think local authorities are getting, I wouldn't say more competent, because that's the real stretch of the imagination. But they are realising that they've got a pretty important role in ensuring that the high street survives. They've got a vested interest in that. And I think they've been really poor in previous years with the mix of tenants that they put in or allow into high streets, the ones that are owned, or properties that are owned by the council or require planning, etc. I think now they are more conscious of it. I think they are allowing more independence into the high street, shaking the high street up in the sense that no one wants to go to the same high street in every single town they go to. They don't want to see all the same shops. And I think that's where things are changing a little bit now. We are seeing more independence coming into the high street, which is great, which is what we all want. And it isn't all about restaurants and hairdressers and coffee shops. So long may that continue. I do believe with the government hopefully stepping in on doing something on business rates, that will add momentum and only help what happens in the high street. It's going to take time. It's going to be just about 2020. It's going to be the back end of 2020 before you really start seeing high street, I think, picking up. And also with Brexit not out of the way, but certainly out of that impasse in Parliament, it will hopefully give the economy a bit of a leg up, a bit of a Boris boost, as they say. And I think all of those things coming together will help the high street. And by the way, there's some good deals to be done out there now for anyone wanting to start a business on the high street or off the high street, or with new developers. New developers, great opportunity to do deals with these guys, and even get maybe capital contributions to help with your fit outs. So there's all sorts of opportunities out there as well. So it's not all doom and gloom. And I think the improvements in 2020 will accelerate into 2021. So look, those are my predictions for 2020. Hope you found them interesting. I hope my explanations made some sense to you, and some surprises in there, some that maybe aren't so surprising. And I wish you a very successful 2020, and do tune in to the next podcast, which will be out in a week's time. So leave your comments. Please subscribe, tell your friends about it. I need people listening to me. And if you've got any comments, then please bang them in there, and hopefully I can incorporate some of those into my podcast going forward. So cheers, thanks, and speak to you again soon.